Boy prays for a family, and an infertile woman decides to change everything. Emily Johnson felt the weight of silence inside the doctor's office. The specialist's words still echoed in her mind like a painful refrain that refused to fade. Another attempt had failed. Another hope had slipped away. That was when she decided to seek refuge in the small church in the Williamsburg neighborhood of New York City. Pushing open the heavy wooden door, she expected to find the quiet she so desperately needed. But what she saw made her stop mid-aisle. A boy was kneeling at the front pew, whispering words she couldn't quite make out. His small hands were clasped in prayer, and even from a distance, Emily could tell he was crying. "Please send someone who will stay with me forever," the boy murmured. "I promise to be obedient, do all the chores, get good grades in school." Emily felt a tightness in her chest. Those words were so pure, so desperate that she couldn't move. The boy continued. "I know Grandma Margaret isn't going to get better. Mrs. Wilson is getting sick too. I don't want to go to another foster home. I just want a family who will really love me." The executive approached slowly, her heels clicking against the church's stone floor. The boy turned, startled, and she could see his red-rimmed eyes from crying. "Sorry, I didn't mean to bother anyone," he said, quickly standing up. "You're not bothering anyone," Emily replied, her voice softer than she intended. "My name is Emily. What's yours?" "Ethan," he hesitated. "I live nearby. I come here to pray every day." Emily sat on the pew beside him, something she normally would never do. There was a sincerity in the boy's gaze that touched her deeply. "You mentioned your grandmother. Is she sick?" Ethan nodded, wiping his nose with the sleeve of his light blue shirt. "She's been in the hospital for 4 months. I stay with Mrs. Wilson, our neighbor, but she's not doing well either. The doctor said Grandma Margaret won't—" He paused, swallowing hard. "That she won't get better." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. "And you don't have anyone else?" "No." Ethan shook his head. "My mom and dad left when I was little. Grandma always took care of me. She said my parents were too young and didn't know how to be parents yet." Emily felt a pang in her heart. Here was a boy who had everything she longed to give and receive, and at the same time she had everything he needed most. It was a cruel twist of fate. "What about you?" Ethan asked with a child's natural curiosity. "Do you have kids?" The question caught Emily off guard. She looked into his innocent face and couldn't bring herself to lie. "No. My husband and I tried for many years, but do you come here to ask for a family too?" The simplicity of Ethan's question brought tears to Emily's eyes. In a way, that was exactly what she was doing there. "Maybe," she admitted. They sat in silence for a few minutes, each lost in their own thoughts. The afternoon light was fading, and the golden glow streaming through the stained glass windows created an almost magical atmosphere. "I should go," Ethan said, standing up. "Mrs. Wilson worries if I'm late." "Ethan, wait." Emily stood as well. "Which hospital is your grandmother in?" "Mercy General Hospital downtown." "Why?" "I'd like to visit her if that's all right, and maybe I can help somehow." The boy eyed her warily. It was clear he had learned not to trust adults easily. "You don't even know me. Why would you want to help?" Emily took a moment before answering. "How do you explain to a child that sometimes fate puts people in our path exactly when we need them?" "Because everyone deserves someone who cares," she finally said. Ethan considered her words and then nodded. "Okay, Grandma Margaret is in room 312. She likes visitors." Emily watched the boy leave the church, his small figure disappearing into the busy street. She stood there for a few more minutes, feeling something had shifted inside her. For the first time in months, she felt a spark of purpose. When she got home to her luxurious apartment in the Upper East Side, Emily found her husband Michael watching TV. He was a successful man, a partner at a law firm, but lately he seemed distant and irritable. "How was the doctor?" he asked, without taking his eyes off the screen. "Same as always," Emily replied, taking off the grey blazer she was wearing. "More tests, more false hope." Michael sighed and finally looked at her. Emily, maybe it's time to accept that. That what? She interrupted, a sharpness in her voice that surprised him. That maybe it's just not meant to be. We're happy, we have a good life. Why torture ourselves? Emily sat in the armchair across from the couch where Michael was. Today I met a boy. He was praying in a church asking for a family. Emily. He's 12, Michael. 12. And he's completely alone in the world. Michael turned off the TV and stared at her. Where are you going with this? He needs a family. We want a child. Maybe... Don't even think about it. Michael stood up abruptly. Adoption is out of the question. Why? Because I want our own child, Emily. Our blood, not some stranger. Michael's words hit Emily like a slap. She had known him for 15 years, been married to him for 10, and had never seen this side of him. Some stranger? Michael, we're talking about a child. A child we know nothing about. His family, his genes, his... You're talking like you're buying a car. Emily stood too, her voice rising. I'm being practical. Adoption is complicated, time-consuming, expensive. Expensive. Michael, you make more in a month than most people see in a lifetime. It's not about money, it's about the fact that I always dreamed of having a child who was truly mine. Emily felt as if the ground had opened beneath her. And you think an adopted child wouldn't truly be yours? Michael ran a hand through his hair, a gesture he made when stressed. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. They stared at each other in tense silence. Emily could see in his eyes that he wouldn't budge. And for the first time in 10 years of marriage, she wondered if she really knew the man she'd married. I'm visiting his grandmother tomorrow, she said, breaking the silence. Emily, don't get involved. You'll only hurt yourself more. Maybe. But at least I'll have done something useful. The next morning, Emily cancelled 2 important meetings and went to Mercy General Hospital. It was a public hospital, crowded and filled with that antiseptic smell she hated. But there was a determination in her steps that surprised her. In room 312, she found a white-haired woman with kind eyes. Margaret Johnson must have been around 70, and despite her apparent frailty, her gaze was still lively. You must be Emily, Margaret said as she entered. Ethan told me about you. Is he here? He'll be here soon. He visits me every day after school. He's a special boy, you know. Never gave me any trouble. Emily sat in the chair beside the bed. Mrs. Johnson, if you don't mind me asking, what happened to Ethan's parents? The elderly woman took a deep breath. My daughter Jessica was only 17 when she got pregnant. Ethan's father, Jason, was also very young. They tried to make a family work, but they were just kids trying to raise another kid. And where are they now? Jessica lives in Chicago. She has a new family. Jason, I lost touch with him years ago. They tried to stay in contact with Ethan at first, but it got harder over time. Emily felt a mix of anger and sadness. How could parents just abandon their child? Does Ethan know about this? He knows his parents were too young and couldn't take care of him. I never wanted him to grow up with anger in his heart. At that moment, Ethan walked into the room. He stopped, surprised to see Emily. Hi, Aunt Emily. Hi, Ethan. How was school today? Good. I had a math test. Think I did well. Emily watched the interaction between grandmother and grandson. There was so much love there, so much genuine affection. It was clear Margaret had raised Ethan with immense love, despite the hardships. Ethan, could you grab me a snack from downstairs? Margaret asked. The boy nodded and ran off, happy to have a task. He's very responsible for his age, Emily remarked. He had to be. Life hasn't been easy for us. My pension is small, and Ethan knows he has to help, but he's never complained. Mrs. Wilson, can I ask you something directly? Of course. The doctors, did they say anything about your condition? The elderly woman fell silent for a moment, gazing out the window. They said I don't have much time left. My heart is very weak. It could be a few months, maybe just weeks. Emily felt a lump in her throat. Does Ethan know? He knows I'm sick, but he doesn't know that I'll be gone soon. How do you tell a child that? And what will happen to him? There's a social worker handling the case. A few families are interested. But I worry. Ethan's already been through so much disappointment. What do you mean? Margaret hesitated before answering. When he was 8, there was an attempt at adoption. A very good family. They took him to see their home. He was excited, but in the end they changed their minds. Said they wanted a younger child. Emily's chest ached. And the second time? 2 years ago. This time he stayed with the family for 3 months. Ethan was starting to adjust, but the couple split up and, well, he came back to me. That's why he's afraid to get attached. Exactly. He's a wonderful boy, but he's learned to guard his heart. Ethan returned with a sandwich and juice for his grandmother. Emily watched as he carefully helped Margaret sit up in bed and made sure she was comfortable before eating anything himself. Grandma, did you eat the hospital lunch today? I did, sweetheart. Mrs. Wilson said she's making your favorite soup tonight. I'll bring it to you. Emily was struck by the boy's maturity. At 12, he was more responsible than many adults she knew. Ethan, tell me about school. Do you like studying? I love it. My favorite subject is English. I like writing essays. What do you like writing about? About happy families, he answered simply. My teacher says I have a good imagination. Emily's heart clenched. Here was a boy who, despite everything, still dreamed of happy families. She stayed another hour at the hospital, talking with Margaret and Ethan. When she left, she promised to return the next day. On her way home, Emily couldn't shake the image of the boy from her mind. There was something about him that moved her deeply, maybe his resilience, or maybe the fact that he represented everything she'd once dreamed of giving a child. Love, care, a stable family. When she got home, she found Michael packing his bags. Are you going somewhere? Meeting in Boston. I'll be gone for 3 days. Emily, I hope you use this time to really think about this situation with the boy. What situation, Michael? You know exactly what I mean. Don't get too involved. You'll only end up getting hurt. And if I don't get involved, he's the one who'll get hurt. Michael stopped packing his bag and stared at her. Emily, be realistic. We don't even know if we could adopt. Our lives are hectic. We work so much. Those are excuses, and you know it. They're not excuses, they're facts. A child needs stability, routine, and love. Mostly love. Michael sighed. When I get back, we'll talk more about this. But please, don't make any rash decisions. After Michael left, Emily stood alone in the silent apartment. For the first time in years, the quiet didn't bother her. Instead, she took the time to reflect on everything that had happened in the last few days. Was Michael right? Was she being impulsive? But then she remembered Ethan's eyes, his prayers at church, how tenderly he cared for his grandmother. No, this wasn't impulse. It was something much deeper. The next morning, Emily returned to the hospital. This time, she brought books for Ethan and fruit for Margaret. She also brought something she'd been thinking about all night. A proposal. Mrs. Margaret, I'd like to suggest something. I'm listening. While you're here at the hospital, I'd like to help with Ethan. I can pick him up from school, help with homework, take him out. That's very kind, but please let me help. I know Mrs. Wilson isn't well and Ethan spends too much time alone. Margaret looked at her grandson, who was flipping through one of the books Emily had brought. Ethan, what do you think? The boy looked up at Emily with his big, serious eyes. Aunt Emily is nice and she brought books. Then it's settled, Margaret smiled. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, in the following days, Emily established a routine. She'd work in the morning but always leave early to pick up Ethan from school. They'd have lunch together, then visit Margaret at the hospital. In the evenings, she'd help him with homework at the small house where he lived with Mrs. Wilson. Margaret Wilson was a 75-year-old woman, Margaret's neighbor and friend for over 30 years. She'd taken Ethan in when Margaret was hospitalized, but it was clear she was overwhelmed. Mrs. Wilson, how are you feeling? Emily asked one afternoon. Oh dear, I won't lie, I'm tired. Ethan's an angel, never any trouble, but my arthritis gets worse every day. Emily looked around the simple but clean and tidy house. It was obvious Mrs. Wilson was doing her best, but she was at her limit. "Would you like me to take Ethan to stay at my apartment some nights?" Mrs. Wilson hesitated. "I don't know if that's right." "Why not? You barely know each other, and he might get attached." "Would it be so bad if he got attached?" "Children who get attached always end up hurt," Mrs. Wilson said, with the wisdom of someone who'd seen a lot of life. That night, Emily talked to Ethan about the possibility. "Would you like to see where I live? Is it far from here?" "A little, but I'd bring you to visit Grandma Margaret every day." Ethan thought for a moment. "Your husband wouldn't like it." The boy's observation surprised her. She hadn't mentioned Michael to him. "Why do you say that?" "Mrs. Wilson said men don't really like kids at home. She said that's why the man from the other family didn't want me anymore." Emily felt anger rise inside her. How could adults be so careless with a child? "Ethan, not all men are like that. And what happened to that family wasn't your fault." "I know," he said. But Emily could see in his eyes he didn't fully believe it. When Michael returned from his trip, Emily told him about the past few days. He listened quietly, but she could see the tension building on his face. "Emily, you're getting too involved. I'm helping a child. You're getting attached, and when the social worker finds a family for him, you'll be heartbroken. What if the social worker doesn't find the right family?" "They will. There are plenty of families looking to adopt. Families who'll want a younger child. Families who'll give up at the first sign of difficulty. Ethan's been through this twice already, Michael, and it's not our responsibility to fix that." Emily stared at him with a hardness he didn't expect. "Then whose is it?" "The state's. The system's, not ours. The state already failed him twice." "Emily, stop. You're fantasizing. Adoption isn't a fairy tale." "I know it's not, but love is real, and that boy deserves to be loved." Michael stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the city below. "What if we can't love him? What if it doesn't work out?" "What if it does?" "Emily, be realistic. We know nothing about raising kids. No one does until they have to. It's different when it's your biological child." "Is it? Why?" Michael turned to her. Because it just is. The instinct, the natural love." "Michael, that's nonsense. Love has nothing to do with biology. It's about choice." They sat in silence for several minutes. Emily could see Michael wrestling with something inside but didn't know how to help him. "I need time to think," he finally said. "How much time?" "I don't know. This is too important to rush." "Michael, his grandmother could pass any day. We don't have forever." "Then maybe it's best to let the normal process take its course." Emily felt like she'd been punched in the gut. "Normal process? We're talking about a boy, not a corporate procedure. I'm talking about being rational. And I'm talking about being human." That night they slept in silence, each on their own side of the bed. Emily lay awake for hours, thinking about Ethan, about Margaret, about everything that had happened. For the first time in their 10-year marriage, she felt truly alone. The next morning she went to work as usual, but her mind was elsewhere. During an important meeting, she caught herself thinking about Ethan doing his homework alone, waiting for her to come home. At 5 o'clock, she dropped everything and went to pick him up from school. When she saw him walk through the gates, backpack slung over his shoulders, and that shy smile he always gave when he spotted her, Emily knew she was doing the right thing. "Hi, Aunt Emily." "Hi, Ethan. How was school today?" "Good. The teacher liked my essay." "What did you write about?" "About a lady who found a boy in a church." Emily's heart raced. "And how does the story end?" "I don't know yet," Ethan said honestly. "I'm waiting to see." They went straight to the hospital. Margaret was weaker but still smiled when they walked in. "How's my favorite grandma?" Ethan teased, kissing her forehead. "Better now that you're here." Emily helped Ethan with his homework while Margaret rested. It was an essay titled "My Family," and Emily was moved by what he wrote. "My family is small but full of love. My grandma Margaret taught me that family isn't just about sharing blood, but about caring for each other every day. She taught me to pray, to be kind, and to always help those in need. I don't know what will happen to me when Grandma goes to heaven, but I hope to find people who understand that love isn't inherited, it's built. Emily had to hold back her tears. Ethan, can I copy this essay? Why? To show someone very important. That night, Emily showed the essay to Michael. He read it silently, and she could see his eyes filling with tears. Did he write this alone? Michael asked. Alone, at 12 years old. Michael read the essay twice more. Emily, You what? I'm scared. Of what? Of not being a good father. Of disappointing him. Of disappointing you. Emily moved closer to her husband and took his hands. Michael, do you think I'm not scared? Of course I am. But fear can't be bigger than love. What if it doesn't work out? What if it does? Michael, this boy needs a chance, a real chance with people who will fight for him. Michael stayed silent for a long time. What do you want me to do? I want you to meet him. Not to make a decision, just to meet him. And then? Then we'll see what our hearts say. The next day, Michael went with Emily to pick up Ethan from school. The boy was surprised to see a stranger in the car. Ethan, this is my husband, Michael. Hi, Ethan said shyly. Hi, Ethan. Emily's told me a lot about you. She told me about you too. What did she say? That you're a lawyer and really smart, and that sometimes you get mad for no reason. Michael laughed, surprised by the boy's honesty. She really said that? She did, but she also said you have a good heart. You just forget where you put it sometimes. Michael glanced at Emily in the rearview mirror, and she shrugged as if to say, I didn't say it exactly like that, but close enough. At the hospital, Michael watched the interaction between Ethan and Margaret. He saw how the boy helped his grandmother drink water, fluffed her pillows, and read to her when she was too tired to talk. He's very mature, Michael commented to Emily while Ethan was in the bathroom. He had to be. And very caring. Margaret raised him well. Emily, Just then Ethan returned and Michael didn't finish his sentence. But Emily could see something had changed in his eyes. On the way back, Ethan asked, Mr. Michael, Emily said you can't have kids. Michael nearly choked. Emily looked at him worriedly. Yeah, it's true. That must be sad. It's very sad. I get sad too, not having parents. Maybe we could be sad together. Michael pulled the car over. He couldn't drive with his eyes full of tears. Ethan, he said, turning around, would you like to have dinner at our house tonight? The boy looked at Emily, who nodded. Can I? Of course you can. That evening, Ethan helped Emily make dinner. Michael watched from the living room, noticing how careful the boy was with everything, how he asked if he was doing things right, how he thanked them for the smallest things. During dinner, Ethan talked about school, his dream of being a writer, and how he liked helping people. Michael asked a few questions about soccer and discovered Ethan rooted for the same team he did. You have a really nice house, Ethan said while they were washing the dishes. Thank you, Emily replied. But you know what it was missing? What? Someone to laugh in it. When they took Ethan back to Mrs. Wilson's house, he hugged them both. Thanks for dinner. It was the best day I've had in a long time. In the car, Michael and Emily stayed quiet until they got home. He's special, Michael finally said. He is. Emily, I want to try. Try what? I want to try to be his father. I want to try to give him the family he deserves. Emily turned to Michael with tears in her eyes. Are you sure? I'm scared, but I'm sure. That boy, he made me remember why I wanted to be a father. Why? To have someone to protect, to teach, to love unconditionally. And he also made me realize that it has nothing to do with genetics. Emily kissed her husband, feeling they were finally on the same path. So, should we start the process? Yes, but first we need to talk to him. He needs to know we're interested, but that it'll be a long journey. What if someone else wants to adopt him first? Then we'll hope they're as special as he deserves. The next day, they sought out the social worker handling Ethan's case. Sarah Thompson was a 50-year-old woman, experienced and a bit skeptical. "Are you sure you want to begin an adoption process?" she asked. "Absolutely," Emily replied. "And you know Ethan isn't a baby. He's 12, already has a formed personality, has been through trauma." "We know," Michael said, "and it doesn't scare us." "Do you know his history, the previous adoption attempts?" "We know part of it, and we want to know everything." Sarah studied them for a moment. "I'll be honest with you. Ethan is a special child, but he's also deeply hurt. He'll test you, push boundaries, see if you'll really stay." "We'll stay," Emily said firmly. "Everyone says that at first." "We're not everyone," Michael countered. Sarah smiled for the first time since the conversation began. "I hope not. He deserves a family that stays." The adoption process started with interviews, home visits, and psychological evaluations. It was invasive and exhausting, but Emily and Michael were determined. Meanwhile, they kept visiting Ethan and Margaret every day. The elderly woman's health was declining fast, but she seemed to hold on just to ensure her grandson would be safe. "Emily," Margaret said one afternoon, "can I speak with you privately?" Ethan was doing homework in the waiting room. "Of course. I know you're trying to adopt Ethan. How did you know?" "He told me. He's excited, but also scared." "Scared of what?" "That you'll change your minds like the others." Emily held Margaret's frail hand. "That won't happen." "How can I be sure?" "Because we won't give up on him. Never." Margaret studied Emily's face for a long moment. "There's something I need to tell you." "What is it?" "About Ethan's mother. About Jessica." "I'm listening." "She didn't abandon Ethan because she didn't love him. She left because she loved him too much." "I don't understand." "Jessica was only 17 when she got pregnant. She came from a very poor family, had no support. Jason, Ethan's father, was also young and immature. And when Ethan was born, Jessica tried to raise him alone, but she couldn't give him what he needed. No money for proper food, clothes, doctors. So she left him with you?" "She brought him to me when he was 2. She was crying so hard, said she'd rather see him raised with love and stability than watch him struggle." Emily's heart ached. "She never reached out again?" "She did. Sends money every month, whatever little she can, and letters. I've kept them all." "Does Ethan know?" "No. I thought it best not to tell him as a child. But now I think he has the right to know his mother never stopped loving him." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because if you adopt Ethan, one day he'll want to know about his birth parents, and when that day comes, you'll need to help him understand that sometimes love means letting go." That night, Emily told Michael everything. "Does this change anything for you?" she asked. "It does. It changes that now I understand Ethan comes from a family that knows how to love, even when it's hard." "Do you think we should tell him about the letters?" "I think we should ask Margaret when she thinks the right time is." 3 weeks later, on a Saturday morning, Emily's phone rang. It was Sarah, the social worker. "Emily, I need to talk to you urgently." "Did something happen?" "A family has expressed interest in Ethan. They're already approved for adoption and their process is faster than yours." Emily felt the world spin. "But they want to meet him on Monday. And we don't have a choice?" "Technically, no. They have priority because they've been in the system longer." Emily hung up and told Michael everything. They sat in silence for a long moment. "What do we do now?" Michael asked. "We talk to Ethan. He has the right to know." They found Ethan at the hospital reading to Margaret. When they told him about the interested family, they saw a mix of hope and fear in his eyes. "Are they nice?" he asked. "We don't know them yet," Emily replied. "And you? Do you still want to adopt me?" "We do," Michael said. "More than anything in the world. But maybe this other family would be better for me." "Maybe," Emily admitted. "But we'll be here no matter what." Ethan looked at his grandmother, who had stayed quiet the whole time. "Grandma, what do you think?" Margaret held her grandson's hand. "I think you should meet this family. And then, follow your heart. What if my heart is confused? Then you pray, like you always have." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. On Monday, Ethan met the Miller family. Robert and Jennifer were a couple in their 40s, already had a 15-year-old daughter and wanted to adopt a boy. They seemed like good people. They had a big house and financial stability. "So?" Emily asked when Ethan returned from the meeting. "They're nice," he said, without much enthusiasm. "Just nice? Their house is really big. They have a pool and a room just for me." "That's good, isn't it?" "Yeah, but what?" "They kept asking if I like soccer, if I'm messy, if I'm difficult. It felt like they were checking if I fit." Michael and Emily exchanged glances. "What did you tell them?" "The truth, that I like reading more than soccer, that I'm organized and that I try not to be a burden." "How did they react?" "Mr. Robert seemed a little disappointed I don't like soccer. Mrs. Jennifer said that was good, that I wouldn't dirty the house." Emily felt a pang of irritation, as if a 12-year-old boy shouldn't dirty a house. "Ethan, did you like them?" The boy hesitated. "They're good people, but I didn't feel like they wanted me. I felt like they wanted a boy, any boy who fit what they imagined." "And with us, how do you feel?" Michael asked. "With you, I feel like you want me, Ethan, not just any boy." That night, the Millers called Sarah, saying they wanted to proceed with the adoption. Ethan had to give his answer by the end of the week. "What if he chooses them?" Michael asked Emily. "Then we'll support his decision and hope they're good parents." "Even if it hurts. Even if it hurts. His happiness is what matters." On Thursday, Margaret took a sudden turn for the worse. Emily got a call from Mercy General Hospital at 6 in the morning. "Mrs. Johnson, this is Mercy General. Mrs. Wilson is asking to speak with you urgently." Emily and Michael rushed to the hospital. They found Ethan in the hallway crying. "She's really bad," he said. "The doctors said it's a matter of hours." Inside the room, Margaret was conscious but visibly weak. "Emily, Michael, come here." They approached the bed. "I won't get to see Ethan grow up. I won't be there when he needs advice, when he has doubts, when he falls in love for the first time. Mrs. Margaret, let me speak. I've watched you these past months. I've seen how you've cared for him, respected him, loved him without trying to change him." "We really do love him," Emily said. "I know, and that's why I'm going to ask something of you. Anything you want. Don't let him forget where he came from. Don't let him forget he was deeply loved before you came along." "Never," Michael promised. "And when he wants to meet his birth mother, help him. Don't be afraid or jealous." "We'll help," Emily promised. Margaret then called Ethan. "My boy, it's time for me to go." "No, Grandma. You can't leave now." "I have to, Ethan, but first, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll be happy, that you'll let yourself be loved and love in return." "I promise." "And Ethan?" "Yes? I'll always be watching over you, even if I'm not here." Ethan cried hard, but nodded. "Emily, Michael, take good care of my boy." "We will," they said in unison. Margaret closed her eyes and passed peacefully, with Ethan's hand in one of hers and Emily's in the other. The wake was simple, but full of love. Many people from the neighborhood came to say goodbye to Margaret, sharing stories of her kindness and generosity. Ethan held strong, accepting condolences with impressive maturity. The morning after the burial, Sarah came to speak with Ethan. "Ethan, you need to make a decision. The Miller family is waiting for an answer." "I've already decided," he said, looking at Emily and Michael. "And what's your decision?" "I want to stay with Emily and Michael. They truly love me." Sarah smiled. "Then I'll notify the Millers and speed up your process." But the Millers didn't take the rejection well. They claimed Ethan was emotionally shaken by his grandmother's loss and wasn't in a state to make such a decision. The case ended up in family court. The judge ruled that Ethan would stay in temporary foster care until his emotional stability could be assessed. "This is outrageous," Emily told Sarah. "He just lost his grandmother, and you're taking him away from the only people who love him." "It's not my decision, Emily, it's protocol." "Stupid protocol." Ethan was taken to a temporary foster home across town. Emily and Michael could visit him twice a week for 2 hours each visit. "How are you feeling?" Emily asked during the first visit. "Sad, angry, confused." "Ethan, we're going to fight for you. We won't give up." "What if you can't?" "We will." "But what if you can't?" he pressed. Michael knelt in front of the boy. "Ethan, look at me. We'll succeed because love always wins. It might take time. It might be hard. But in the end, love always wins." The weeks in foster care were tough for everyone. Ethan was clearly depressed, Emily couldn't focus at work, and Michael spent every free moment studying adoption case law. Finally, they got a hearing with the judge. Emily, Michael, and Ethan were each heard separately. "Ethan," the judge said, "are you certain you want to be adopted by the Johnsons?" "Absolutely certain." "Why?" "Because they love me as I am. They don't want to change me, don't expect me to be perfect. They just want me to be happy." "And you feel safe with them?" "I feel at home." The judge also heard testimony from Ethan's teachers, Mrs. Wilson, Sarah, and even the doctor who cared for Margaret. Everyone spoke about the genuine bond between Ethan and the Johnsons. A week later, the decision came. Temporary custody would be granted to Emily and Michael, with full adoption to follow after 6 months of monitoring. Ethan came home on a sunny Saturday. Emily had prepared the room that would be his, with books, a small desk, and some plants he had mentioned liking. "Is this my room?" he asked, emotional. "It's yours forever," Michael replied. "What if you change your minds?" "Ethan," Emily said, kneeling in front of him, "we'll argue sometimes, you'll get mad at us sometimes, and we'll worry about you sometimes. That's normal in a family, but we will never, ever give up on you." "Promise?" "I promise." "Does Michael promise too?" "I promise," Michael said, hugging them both. The first few months were an adjustment. Ethan tested his limits a few times, coming home late from school to see if they'd worry, leaving his room messy to see if they'd scold him, getting a bad grade on a test to see if they'd punish him. Emily and Michael understood he was testing whether they'd really stay, and they responded with patience and steady love. "Ethan," Michael said one night after a particularly hard day, "you can test us as much as you want, we're not going anywhere. Even if I do something really wrong, even if you do something really wrong, we'll talk about it, we'll help you fix it, but we won't leave. Never, never." Gradually, Ethan began to relax and believe he really had a family. He started calling Emily Mom and Michael Dad naturally, without forcing it. 6 months later, on the day of the final adoption, the judge asked Ethan how he felt. "I feel whole," he answered. "I feel truly loved." Emily and Michael officially became Ethan Johnson's parents in a simple but emotional ceremony. Sarah was there, Mrs. Wilson too, and even some neighbors from Ethan's old neighborhood. "How does it feel to officially be my son?" Emily asked. "Like I've finally come home." 3 months later, on a Sunday afternoon, Ethan was helping Emily sort through some papers when he found a box in the closet. "Mom, what's this?" Emily looked and saw it was the letters Margaret had saved from Ethan's birth mother. "Ethan, sit down. I need to tell you something." She told him about the letters, about how Jessica had never stopped loving him, how she had sent money and letters every month. "She really cares about me?" Ethan asked, tears in his eyes. "So much. She loves you, but she knew she couldn't give you what you needed when she was younger. Can I read the letters?" "Of course you can. And if you want, we can try to reach out to her." Ethan thought for a moment. "I want to meet her, but I don't want you to think I love you any less." "Ethan," Michael said, having overheard the conversation, "love doesn't shrink when it's shared, it grows." "So I can meet my birth mom and still be your son?" "You'll always be our son," Emily said, "and you'll always be hers too. You're lucky to have so many people who love you." Months later, they arranged a meeting with Jessica. She came from Chicago just to see the son she had raised for 2 years and never stopped worrying about. The reunion was emotional and a little tense at first, but Ethan understood that Jessica truly loved him and had made a hard choice out of love. "Thank you," Jessica said to Emily and Michael, and "thank you for loving my son the way I always dreamed he'd be loved." "Thank you for giving us the chance to be his parents," Emily replied. A year after the adoption, Ethan was in the same church where it all began. But this time, he wasn't asking for a family. He was giving thanks. "Thank you for giving me the family I always wanted. Thank you for showing me that prayers are answered, even when we think they won't be." Emily watched him from the church entrance, smiling. Her life had completely changed since she met that boy praying. She had found the purpose she'd always searched for, the love she'd always wanted to give. "Mom?" Ethan saw her and walked over. "Hi, sweetheart. Were you praying?" "I was giving thanks. And you know why?" "Why?" "Because I realize sometimes God answers our prayers in ways we never imagined. I prayed for a family, and He gave me you. You prayed for a child, and He gave you me." Emily hugged her son, feeling her life was finally complete. "And now, what will you pray for?" "Now I'll pray to be a good son to you and to make Grandma Margaret proud of me up in heaven. She's already so proud of you, and so are we." "Mom?" "Yes?" "I love you." "I love you too, my son. Forever." 6 months later, on a Saturday morning, Emily woke up feeling strange. Michael was making breakfast, and Ethan was studying for a test. "Michael," she called, still a bit dizzy. "What's wrong?" "I think I need to see a doctor." "You're not feeling well." "I feel different." Michael looked at her with concern. "Different how?" "Nauseous, tired, like I felt years ago when we thought I might be pregnant." Michael stopped stirring the coffee. "Emily, do you think—" "I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe it's just stress. Let's go to the doctor today." "What about Ethan?" "We'll take him with us. We're a family, remember?" At the doctor's office, Ethan held Emily's hand while they waited for the test results. "Mom, are you nervous?" "A little." "Why?" "Because if I'm pregnant, our family will change. For the better?" "I hope so. But what about you? How would you feel about having a little brother or sister?" Ethan thought for a moment. "It'd be cool. I've always wanted to be a big brother." The doctor returned with the results. "Congratulations, Emily. You're pregnant. 8 weeks." Emily began to cry. So did Michael. Ethan looked at them, confused. "Why are you crying? Isn't this good news?" "It's the best news," Michael said, hugging his son. "Then why the tears?" "Sometimes we cry when we're really happy," Emily explained. "Oh, then I'll cry too." And the three of them stood there, crying with joy, hugging in the doctor's office. 9 months later, Emily gave birth to a baby girl. They named her Margaret, in honor of Ethan's grandmother. Ethan was the first to hold his little sister. "Hi, Margaret. I'm your brother Ethan. I'll take care of you forever." The baby opened her eyes and seemed to look right at him. "I think she recognizes me," Ethan said, emotional. "Of course she does," Emily replied. "You're siblings." "Mom, is our family complete now?" "Now, our family is perfect." A few years later, Ethan, now 16, was writing an essay for his college application. The topic was "A Moment That Changed My Life." He wrote about that afternoon in the church, when a stranger approached a boy praying for a family. He wrote about how love can appear in the most unexpected places and how sometimes our prayers are answered in ways we never imagined. "Dad," he called to Michael, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you regret adopting me?" Michael stopped what he was doing and looked at his son. "Ethan, how could you ask me that? Sometimes I wonder if your lives would have been easier without me." "Ethan, look at me. Our life before you was empty. We didn't even realize how empty until you came." "Really?" "Really. You taught us what unconditional love is. You taught us that family isn't about DNA, it's about choice. You made us real parents. And now that you have Margaret, now we're an even stronger family." You are our first child, Ethan. The child we chose. The child who chose us. That's very special. Dad? Yes? I love you. I love you too, son. That evening, when the whole family was gathered for dinner, Ethan looked around the table. Emily was feeding Margaret, who was now 2 years old. Michael was talking about work. It was an ordinary, everyday scene, but to Ethan, it was perfect. "What are you thinking about?" Emily asked. "I was thinking that sometimes the best miracles aren't the ones we ask for, but the ones we need." "What do you mean?" "I prayed for any family, but I got you. You prayed for a baby, but you got me. And now we have Margaret too." "And what does that teach you? That God knows what he's doing, even when we think he doesn't." Michael smiled. "He's going to be a great lawyer one day." "Or a writer," said Ethan. "I'm still deciding." "You can be whatever you want," Emily said. "We'll always support your dreams." "I know, that's why I know I'm the luckiest kid in the world." That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Emily and Michael stayed on the porch, watching the stars. "Do you remember that day at the church?" Emily asked. "How could I forget? It was the day our life truly began. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't walked into that church." "But you did, and you found our son." "No," Emily smiled. "Our son found us. True, that brave boy who prayed for a family and changed our lives forever. And now? Now we have everything we ever dreamed of, and then some." Emily snuggled into her husband's arm. "Michael?" "Yes. Thank you." "For what?" "For opening your heart to Ethan. For becoming the father he deserved. Thank you for showing me that love isn't about genetics." They stood there in silence, thinking about how a chance meeting in a church had changed their lives forever, and how sometimes the best endings are really new beginnings. The end. What did you think of this story of love and resilience? Do you believe Emily and Michael made the right choice by opening their hearts to Ethan? Have you lived or heard of a similar story of a family formed by love, not blood? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartfelt stories we've prepared just for you.